And welcome everybody to Call the Mayor Wichita. I'm Craig Andrus. Your number is 316-491-5787. That's the number to call. Mayor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's actually not your studio. I think last time we were at your studio.
Nonetheless, happy to be here. And you might notice we are still not as close to that flag as normal. We're still social distancing here.
That's right.
So we appreciate you joining us. 316-491-5787. Mayor, I'll just jump right into it while we're waiting for our first call right now. I know Century 2, it's kind of been, floated by the city manager at this point to maybe look into privatization of some parts of, I will say, Century 2.
Yeah, so Century 2 was supposed to be like the main thing I was dealing with this year, and then we had quite a few other things come up, and I'll tell you, with the budget crisis, with some of these discussions about what the future of Century 2 is, I think that the city manager is looking into options of possibly utilizing a private organization to help manage the acts and so on. But we would need to really jump into the details of that. One of the great things about Century 2, particularly what we learned during the COVID crisis and some of these other things that we've been dealing with, is how much it's necessary. Century 2 is a space that we looked at in case we needed overflow for people if they were, if the hospitals had a run on for COVID, and it's also a place where we utilize for sanitation purposes for our first responder vehicles. So I think that those talks are really early, and we're just starting to kind of look at the item on the table because everything's on the table right now. But I don't have any solid details of what the plan might be, because I think that it's just in the conversation phase at this point.
All right, now I should say too that you went and got tested for COVID again. That's just part of the process.
Yeah, this is my life now. And yeah, I chat about that a little bit. So this is my third COVID test. One of the things we found out is one of the members of my diversity, inclusion, and civil rights advisory board to the mayor, they were at our meeting. We were still all socially distanced. We still had a mask on, and I think I was the closest one interacting with anyone. This person we didn't qualify for what's called a contact tracing, right? Where you're supposed to call everyone who you're within 6 feet of for 10 minutes or longer, and that you could possibly pass this on that way. We didn't qualify for that, but the person went above and beyond by telling us, and of course we alerted the council, and just out of abundance of caution, I want to go take a COVID test. It's my third one. I should probably just make a standard, a standard appointment, I guess, over at the county health department. And I put on my social media because I want people to know how easy it is. And also, although it sounds really scary, when you watch it, it's really, I don't think that's scary. So what you do is you call 211. My understanding is the county actually really beefed up the callers so that you can get through to a person quicker. 211, and then they will set you up with a COVID test, and it's a drive-through. So as you can see from the screen here, it's just like any other drive-through. You just drive forward, people direct you in the right spot. They tell you the information. You have to show your ID, and then they take the test. The test is probably about 20 minutes. The entire experience is roughly, I would say, about 10 minutes getting all the way through it. So if you're someone who has been around big crowds, or you even have symptoms or don't have symptoms, definitely call 211, and they can set you up with one of these free, fast, fairly easy COVID tests.
All right, so 316-491-5787, that's the number to call the mayor, ask any question you'd like. And since we are living with COVID-19, I'm sure we'll get some of those questions as we always do. I will go back to Century 2 for a moment right now, in that I know the Save Century 2 group is gathering signatures. I could be wrong here, but I believe off the top of my head, they have the 12,554, I believe it is, signatures needed. Now the group continues to gather signatures because they would like a cushion to make sure that everyone on the list is registered to vote and voted in the last election. Those are the parameters there. They say they've got the numbers, but they want a cushion. So they continue their efforts. Your thoughts on Century 2 right now, and where we stand in terms of putting it up potentially for a public vote?
So I want feedback from the community when it comes to the future of Century 2. I am a little worried about the wording that this group is trying to put forward for the ballot, because some interpretations of that wording would make it very difficult for us to really do any type of large maintenance on any of our buildings that I guess fall within a certain age range. So I understand there is a big chunk of people who wants to save Century 2 and repurpose it or keep it the way it is, or utilize it as part of our development downtown. And those people deserve a voice. We should definitely be having those conversations. I am like I said, a little worried about unintended consequences. I've been in a legislature for the past 7 years, and one of my understandings of policy really is sometimes you think it's doing this, but it actually does that as well. So I'm a little worried about the language. I am excited that we are getting people who are out there gathering signatures, making sure that our democratic process is working and make sure the voices are heard. That does excite me. And moving forward, we're going to have to see if there's a need to put it on a ballot, or if there's other options. Perhaps at the very least, we could bring these folks to the table and talk about the future of Century 2. And like I said earlier, like Century 2 is supposed to be one of our biggest topics this year, and just with COVID, the economy has really felt the effects of this crisis. We're at a very big shortfall at the city level, and then of course the private sector is also feeling the economic crisis here. So I think that politically or even economically, the entire world's changed right now. So from when this petition started to where we are now, I think it's a very different discussion.
And two, I know the group has brought up several times, they feel that, and I don't know if you've looked into the numbers here, but they feel like maintenance has perhaps been deferred several times per city council actions. Your thoughts on maintenance of the building, and perhaps has it been deferred? Is that something you've personally looked into?
So it wouldn't surprise me. So for those people watching, deferred maintenance is basically like when your check engine light comes on and it's like a $300 fix, but then you keep driving on it, and now a year later that $300 fix has caused more problems, and now it's a $2,000 fix. Same thing happens with public buildings. A lot of times in elected government, though, particularly when you have tight budgets, people will defer the maintenance of buildings, and that just kind of adds up. So my understanding is Century 2 has been a victim of that in the past, before I was elected, and some of that deferred maintenance has actually added up, and now it would cost a lot more than it would have if we just took care of the problem back when the problem came up. So that's something we got to look into. I wasn't elected to the city at that point, so I'm not really sure what those background conversations were, what really was going on budget-wise or even policy or politically when it came to Century 2. But I do know that it's common where we have deferred maintenance on buildings, and it really adds up. I remember being in student government back in Wichita State 1,000 years ago when I was a student there, and when we lobbied up in Topeka for student issues, one of it was deferred maintenance, and we actually had the chart that shows if you don't fix it in the next 3 years, the next 7 years, it's actually going to be this much, and the number was quite large. So it doesn't shock me that we not only haven't kept up with the maintenance, but also it's going to be a lot heavier price tag.
All right, 316-491-5787. That's the number to give us a call if you'd like to be on the show. We have a caller. Mary, you have a question for the mayor. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hello, good evening. I would like to know if you would seriously consider extending the free bus Saturdays till the end of August, especially for us disabled citizens who are low income and don't get around well otherwise.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, that's actually a really good, really good feedback. So for those of you who watched the last show, which feels like a long time ago, but I guess it wasn't, we talked about how our COVID money that is coming down from the CARES Act, we're able to utilize that money only for direct services that are affected by COVID. So, for example, the economy going down, people not having access to, let's say, their jobs, which means that they have less money for gas or even transportation. We were able to use COVID money to allow free buses, rides on Saturdays. So I got to double check though to see how long that money will last and if we can keep kind of pulling from that pot. Sadly, what we can't do is use that money to backfill some of the economic damage that COVID has caused, it has to be put to more specific use, such as the free bus rides on Saturdays. So it's something worth looking into, Mary. I really appreciate the call and the feedback that it's being utilized, and people are happy with the service. The other thing on Saturdays too is that it is the lowest travel day. So by making it free, we expect more people to actually utilize the bus on Saturday, but naturally we're going to have less people on the bus so we can do social distancing.
All right. Thank you for the answer. Thank you, Mayor, for the call. 316-491-5787. That's the number to call. While we're waiting for our next caller, I will ask the question about the baseball stadium. I know the stadium is kind of up and running. We have had some questions about what happens next with the stadium, since we're kind of in the middle of COVID-19. Everybody's living with it. So the question has been asked to me, so I will ask the question of you, Mayor. What point do we start using that facility for events or baseball? Either one. I know baseball, they're in talks. It sounds like that's moving forward. But at what point do we start using this facility?
So it's an amazing facility. I got to tour it the day that it was supposed to be the grand opening, but of course, because of COVID, it wasn't the grand opening. It was just us walking through and seeing the finished product. It's an amazing space, and when I talked to one of the developers over there, or one of the owners, his vision for it isn't just for baseball, but also as a community gathering center, a place where families can come lay down a blanket on the field and watch something like Shrek over on the big screen they have there. Really, he wants this to be just a community gathering spot. Of course, one of the problems is when they were figuring out the finances for this, obviously no one anticipated that a once in 100-year international pandemic was going to strike Wichita the way it has. And so sadly, we are at the mercy of the virus. We are still seeing numbers go up. We're seeing more people who are becoming infected. And I think some people try to associate that with, well, we have more testing. Just on, I think it was NPR this morning, they said that nationally testing has only gone up about 5%, but cases of COVID has gone up 30%. So we would actually see a correlation with the level of testing and then the level of people who are being tested positive. The reality is it's in our community, and we got to be cautious. We are still figuring out what this virus does to us and figuring out the best ways to treat it. So we want to buy time for the medical community. So as far as, I would love to bring my kids down to the baseball stadium to partake in that, but really safety of our community comes first. All the research when it comes to pandemics, pretty much when they turn really bad, start with a huge public gathering, right? Like it starts when, the city didn't cancel a parade, they had the parade, and then you had hundreds of people who died. Wichita's doing really well, actually, surprisingly well compared to all of our comparable cities, where when it comes to COVID, we were supposed to have about 200, 300 deaths here in Wichita. Sadly, I mean, not all death is sad, don't get me wrong. We have less than 30 deaths countywide. So we have done a really good job, keep that number down, protecting Kansans. It's still sad that anyone has to come to this. But again, if you look at Tulsa, if you look at Kansas City, if you look at Oklahoma City, if you look at the other areas that we're comparable to, Wichita has really handled this well, and we don't want to take our foot off the gas because it could cost us our family members or our neighbors.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. 316-491-5787. That is the number. And we have our next caller. Sean, you're on the show. You have a question. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My question was, are there any assets that the city can sell to make up for the deficit problem?
That's
For
a
example,
really good
I'm
question.
a golfer, but I was thinking maybe some of the golf courses could be sell.
So that's a really good question, Sean. Actually, in the legislature, when we were in budget crisis, we looked towards our state assets that we weren't utilizing, and we're able to sell some of those assets to help, pay for education. During this budget crisis, I went to the folks over in the budget department as well as the city manager and asked them about any type of assets we have that we really didn't need that we could sell to try to fill in backfill that budget hole. Sadly, we really didn't have much. Over the last few years, the city has been pretty responsible by keeping taxes down and utilizing sales of assets to make sure that we can balance the budget. We did sell, I think, a parcel, or went to contract with a parcel of a small piece of land recently, but it's really slim pickings. We don't have any, I think, really big assets at this point that we could utilize. I found out that a few years ago the police department had a chopper, had a big helicopter, and they wound up selling that. Those type of assets, we just don't really have those handy here at the city level. So we're going to have to balance the budget the old-fashioned way, sadly, which is making tough decisions and tough cuts.
So, Mayor, I guess as a follow-up, I'll ask the question, do we anticipate some cutting, and how big is that budget hole? What is a number that we have, at least even a preliminary? I know council has looked at it.
Yeah, it's a bad one. It's a serious number at this point, and it fluctuates, because if Washington was going to pass some type of relief bill, then we'd be in a different situation. And I think it was the HOPE Act or maybe it's not the HOPE Act. One of the acts that passed out of the House not too long ago would have left us pretty much whole. So hopefully the Senate can bounce back with their version of a bill, and we might get some relief. Until then, we are looking at, I think, $5 to $11 million shortfall this year alone, which means, to put that in perspective, in last year they set the 2020 budget, right? It's kind of like a template, and we make changes this year, of course, but so the last year the budget was somewhat set, and we could guess that we can do the same things we did last year. And now this year we have to trim $5 to $11 million out of that. I think next year they are looking at a deficit of probably $16 million. Really large numbers for a budget our size, where we really can't make these cuts without them being felt. These are going to be programs that people like, that they want. It's going to be stuff that people expect us to do, and the reality is there's no easy decisions right now. We have to face this thing head on, be transparent, make sure that we're talking about it so people know why we're doing some of these changes. But and there's no silver bullet, sadly. It's just too big of a number for us to kind of have a oh yeah moment and find a pot of money over here by cutting this one or two things. It's gonna be sad to get through this, but the Hail Mary is hopefully Congress will give us a hand here, because COVID's a national issue. It's a national problem, and we have to balance our budgets every year and be responsible. We're handling this. We will handle it as a city, but it'd be really nice if some of the relief dollars actually come to cities like ours.
All right, thank you for that response, Mayor. And I do know on the federal level there has been talk, but Congress has not shown the will or desire so far to move anything forward, and the Senate isn't pushing anything at the moment. We'll have to see. 316-491-5787, that is your number to call here. And if you got a question, you can ask anything you want. It doesn't have to be COVID related or budget related. We do have some questions from Facebook. Glad that you've joined us on Facebook and that you're tuning in. Question here: does Sedgwick County have the ability to test to see if people already have COVID-19? So I know that you've been talking to Sedgwick County leaders as well. And your thoughts?
Yes and no. We have, or Sedgwick County, and very good by the way, by pointing out this is in Sedgwick County's lane. The city, we actually don't administer these tests. The Sedgwick County Commission actually serve as the Board of Health for our county. So they do have, kind of two parts to your question here, they do have the capability to test, as in they actually will put the swab in your nose and administer the test. But as far as doing the tests locally, I think they have to ship those out. On our last call I was with our hospital leadership and with our county commission leadership this last Monday, there was talk about, okay, with the CARES Act money, which expires if they don't utilize it on COVID-related expenses, do they want to invest in a lab? And what does that look like? So I think that the county commission, and I'm not over there, so I'm just kind of hearing this stuff secondhand. They are having those conversations about seeing if they could get a lab, or at least the capabilities here in Wichita to process those tests. And again, as we kind of grow with this virus, in our understanding of it, I think testing is probably going to get easier, and it's also the results can come at us faster. I was tested for COVID just a couple of days ago, I think, and I don't expect that call back until maybe Monday. So there's usually a lag, but one of the recommendations that policymakers have said is if we can do pretty much rapid testing, next day you get the results, that's going to really eliminate the spread.
All right, the number is 316-491-5787. If you got a question, we'd welcome your call, and we welcome you on Facebook as well. We do have another question, so we'll get straight to another Facebook question here. We have several. The question here is, what objections do you have with Police Chief Gordon Ramsey's new policies? Now, I'm going to extrapolate from context here. I'm going to assume that they're talking about Chief Ramsey's new policies in regard to use of force and a few other issues, but I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah, so, and if I can get through this, by the way, I've never been through one of these without my earpiece falling out. It has not fallen out
mine
yet.
Twice as well.
So I'm going to try to.
on live television, yes.
Of course it does. So a couple things. First of all, the new policies that were presented today aren't just Chief Ramsey's. They actually come from our community. During the last few weeks when we had rallies, we had protests, and most importantly, we had discussions with different groups throughout the community and asked, really, what are your demands? What do you want to see as far as Wichita's future with policing and with community policing? And Brandon Johnson did a really great job of taking, I think, all of these suggestions, all these demands, all these requests, and putting them together in one major document and then bringing them to our staff for policy research. And they did a deep dive into some of the policies we already do and compared it to the stuff that the public's asking of us. And today they presented that first step. Okay, so what is the changes we can make to meet these requests, and it's something that our police department has done before. After the No Ferguson Here rallies, that's when they were really, forward in getting cameras on all the police officers and setting up the citizen review board. So Chief Ramsey is very good, I think, at being adaptive. Policy-wise to the changes in the community and the expectations of policing, and today was that first step. So what do I disagree with? What I do agree with, I actually, my job is to work for the people. So I'm glad that we can actually take some really solid policy ideas that have come from some of these groups, and also I think for some national sources such as the 8 Can't Wait, some of these other policies that have been floating around there, and see, can we implement some of this for the betterment of our community and our police officers and our residents. And today they took a very large step forward by implementing some of that. Now the next step is to see, get other feedback, send these back out to those organizations, have the Mayor's Advisory Council that's focused on inclusion, diversity, and civil rights. I want to get feedback from the people who's tasked from the council to give us feedback on that, and to see what adjustments we can make. And I think once we get to that first step, and then we can start talking about the next steps after that. But some of it's stuff that they've been practicing, that our police force has been teaching, but it wasn't actually cemented into policy. It was only practice. So I think moving stuff that has been practiced, that is cutting edge as far as community policing, over into policy, and making that make sure that it's going to last for years to come is a really important step forward.
All right, 316-491-5787. That's the number to call if you have a question for the mayor. We do have another caller. Josh, you are on the show. Josh, welcome. What is your question?
Hey, Josh.
Hey, my question is, in Harvey County, they have properties for the Wichita Water, and they're sitting abandoned with homes on them, and I would like to know why we're doing that.
So I'm not sure if I understand the question. In Harvey County, Craig, did you catch that? Oh.
Yeah, I assume, Josh, if you're still there, I assume you're talking about the Equus project, the recharge project?
Yes, there's the home, the guy that used to run the water project. It's sitting on Spring Lake Road, and it's sitting abandoned. It's been abandoned. All we're doing is paying guys to mow it.
Okay. Your thoughts if you have any others.
Yeah, I wish I had some more details on that. when it comes to the aquifer and charging it, we want to make sure that we have water there. Obviously, that's where Wichita gets its water, is from recharged aquifers. As far as anything happening in Harvey County, that's really outside my lane. I'm sure that one of my colleagues on the city council probably could have more information on this, because this sounds like something that was enacted or a program that was utilized before I was elected. So it wouldn't surprise me if people are still mowing it, and that's it winds up being a cost. But I'm not sure if it's a city cost. It sounds more like it's over in Harvey County, so maybe they're the ones responsible for it. But
okay, well, thank you, Mayor, for that. I will say too, if there's an exchange program, likely Harvey County could be mowing it through an exchange
that's true.
pay-to-play program.
Maybe we're getting the invoice. That wouldn't shock me either. It's just one of those where I really don't have the details on aquifer, because that was a situation of droughting that was a few years ago, well before my time.
Okay, 316-491-5787 is the number to call. We can answer your questions here. I'd be happy to introduce you, and you can talk to the mayor. More Facebook people chiming in, so we appreciate you joining here. Has the city frozen new hires? And the city is always looking for people. I know this in every different department, but at this point, your thoughts? Has the city frozen new hires?
So I know that that's one of the strategies for helping our budget shortfall, is to freeze new hires, but I don't think it's a blanket strategy. I think that it really is much more detailed than that, where likely we've looked into departments like, what can you cut, what can you live without, and a lot of those are some of their open jobs that haven't been filled yet. But doing a blanket policy, if we were to lose someone from the legal department, if we were to lose someone who is really essential towards the essential functions of government, of course we'd have to hire that person or go out and try to get someone there. Sadly, one of the things with the hiring is some of our summer programs, where we normally go out and we hire folks to help run our pools, to help run our rec programs. We obviously won't be hiring anyone for those programs right now, because, like I said, sadly, we aren't moving forward with those type of programs, because it wouldn't be responsible for us to do it with COVID right now. So yes and no, I guess, with the question, where we are doing less hiring, but I think that any type of job that helps essential services, we would still want to hire those positions that we're offering the professional level of services that people expect from us as a city.
And again, Mayor, so some of the thoughts about the summer programs, those may not be considered essential services, perhaps golf courses. I don't even know how many golf courses are we operating or are open right now. I don't even know.
Yeah, so I don't want to get too much into golf. I actually got a constituent who's probably watching right now who's very into golf, so if I say the wrong thing, I'll probably get in trouble. Hi, Dale. But I will tell you, golf courses actually are a driver. Like, we actually can get revenue back from golf courses. And with golf, even during the governor's stay-in orders, golf was actually excluded. There are ways you can make adjustments to golf so that you're not at risk of spreading COVID. So we haven't had any that I know of, and this changes daily. We haven't had any outbreaks of COVID from a golf from a golf location. So, that's probably not one that we would be looking to close. It seems safe. Pools, on the other hand, sadly, there's no indication that being in a swimming pool decreases the level of rate transfer for COVID. We would have had to start pools off really late just by utilizing our own reopening plan. And even then, it wouldn't have been really that safe. And it would have cost us, I think, $300,000 to have even a smaller season. So programs like that, programs that, basketball camps, stuff that we actually do that we can't really deliver safely or responsibly, those programs are the ones that are more off the table at this point, which is really sad. And I'll tell you, we try to find like a little bit of a silver lining where, for example, with the pools, moving forward, we aren't going to open pools this summer, but we are going to be able to speed up that the second phase of the maintenance plan. So we hope to speed it up so that next year when we do open up the pools, they'll be ready to go. Their maintenance will be, for the second phase, will be completed. So we are trying to figure out ways to do this stuff purposeful, but we do understand that this is not the services people expect in the summertime from our city.
All right, thank you, Mayor. 316-491-5787 is the number to call. While you can call in and ask any questions you'd like, the Facebook questions keep coming, so let's go to the next one here. So the question comes to us, what are the plans for the NBC World Series and Riverfront Stadium? Mayor, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm not sure. Actually, I know there's some discussion right now. This last week, I've been really focused on policing policy. Really focused on COVID stuff. I haven't been briefed on what the latest results have been from the discussions about the stadium or the sporting events there. So I wish I had more details. If you shoot me an email tomorrow, I can do some investigating when I'm in the office. So feel free to shoot me an email. Very sorry I don't have the answer off the top of my head.
Okay, 316-491-5787, that's the number to call. As the Facebook questions continue, let's get to the next one. The question is about the city pools. I think you dove into that a little bit, but let's ask the question here. With city pools not open this season, will renovation happen now?
Yeah, so I touched on that a little bit, where one of the silver linings for this is that, okay, we have this renovation plan that goes in phases, and this is one of the discussions the manager and I had when we were going over the budget, where can we, at the very least, speed up that renovation process so that while the pools are closed, people who are working on the pools will have full access to them. And so yes, we are going to start the renovations. We are going to speed up that process so that hopefully next year, when the pools are opened, they'll be ready to go. We wouldn't have the same type of issues with renovations that we would if we were, not speeding this up during really this opportunity to knock that construction out while no one's at the pool. So yeah, that is like I said, the one silver lining. But I do want to just make clear, I understand that the pool's closing, the splash pads, that is a big hit to really, I think, parents, to teens who either go swimming or this is their summer job being lifeguards. Like it's a terrible choice, and they're really, with the budget, with COVID, I'll just say there are no good decisions anymore. There's just slightly less bad ones. So it's not anything that anyone at City Hall is happy about. But like I said, we're trying to keep people safe. We're trying to save lives, and we have a budget crisis. So it's just been a heck of a 6 months. But we're going to get through it together as Wichitans.
All right, thank you, Mayor. 316-491-5787, that's the number. We do have another caller, and we're continuing to get Facebook questions, but let's go to the caller. Matt, you're on the show at this point. Welcome, Matt. What is your question for the mayor?
Hey, Matt.
Yeah, congratulations. I think you and Brandon Johnson are the future of our state. My question is about the proposal to ban plastic bags that came to the city council before you were elected. I know it kind of got shelved during the election and whatnot, but I was hoping maybe you could talk about your green initiatives for the state or for the city, and then maybe talk about reconvening some sort of a council to talk about banning the plastic bags. I know Dylan was kind of on board.
Sure. Yeah. Let me.
All right.
And I'll tell you, Matt. Coming in, and I don't mean to laugh about this, but the plastic bag thing was actually like one of my first I guess almost headaches as mayor, where the organization wasn't, or the council wasn't just to look at banning plastic bags, but taking steps forward to be more responsible, with plastic. And I think the media and really the legislature, they tried to write a law to say we couldn't look at this, really kind of took it to the next level, as if we were just going to make these radical changes right away. I think this council actually had the potential to utilize cloth bags to really go on an education campaign on starting that process of what we can do to be more environmentally friendly, particularly with disposable plastic. And it just really kind of, I guess I lost the handle on it, particularly when the legislature started messing around with bills to try to stop cities like us from taking those few steps forward. As far as an update, I will tell you that I haven't been briefed on where the progress is. I know they couldn't meet in person because of COVID. Did they take on some of these Zoom meetings. I did recently hear that they were going to meet. I would have to chat with Brandon Johnson. He is on that committee. He's one of the co-chairs of that committee, so I think he can give me an update on it. So I apologize for not having that for you, but I do know that the people who are appointing that committee are well versed in these type of issues for environmental issues, and I hope that if they got put on hold, they can, particularly as Zoom gets better, as we can meet with social distancing, I hope they get back up and going because they had a lot of really good ideas.
All right, thank you, Mayor. 316-491-5787. That's the number to call. And the Facebook questions continue. If you'd like to call us now.
Yeah, algorithm's working for us over in Facebook.
Yeah, it is. It is. So let's get to the next Facebook question. We have one about Douglas now. Are there any updates on a proposed change to take Douglas from 4 to 2 lanes with bicycle capabilities, essentially enhanced bicycle capabilities is I believe, what that plan would do?
Yeah, so I mean, that kind of goes back into that whole riverfront legacy type plan, right? Where what can we do to make downtown more attractive, not only for conventions, but really for the staycation people, I guess, where Wichita, the outskirts of Wichita, has the potential of people coming in and spending the weekend here in Wichita instead of going down to Oklahoma City. So part of that conversation was, I think Century 2 took a lot of the oxygen out of the room, where everyone really kind of focused on Century 2, but the more holistic plan also included, changing our streets, making biking more accessible, also expanding into, we're seeing some of this now, scooters, other forms of transportation. So to be honest, all that's really been put on hold right now. The entire conversation about the riverfront has been put on hold right now. We're just unclear of the immediate economic future. Like I said, hopefully we can get some help from DC. Sadly, I think we all know that DC is where good ideas go to die, so none of us are counting on that. So we're going to move on the best way we can, and that is conserving our budget, making sure that we're making smart investments to try to grow our economy and keep people safe during COVID. So yeah, I wish I had a better update on that. I will tell you though, the reason why I don't is because the whole priorities have somewhat shifted over the last months, and hopefully we'll be able to get in a better budget spot and a better spot health-wise, maybe some more breakthroughs with how we treat COVID, and then we can get back looking into some of these long-term investments that we began this year talking about.
All right, thank you, Mayor. 316-491-5787 is the number to call, and if you want to catch us on Facebook, we know many of you do. Thank you for the questions. We do have another caller at this time, so we'll take the next call. Teresa, you are on the show. Welcome, Teresa. What is your question?
Are you there, Teresa? Sound like downtown.
Yep. Teresa apparently has been lost. Call us back if you get the chance. 316-491-5787 if you want to give us a call. So I will ask about this, since it is tied into development as well. I know that the riverfront project, we're roughly looking at $1 billion on the East Bank, the West Bank, that development through there with the baseball stadium as well. So the question has been brought up fairly recently by at least one group saying, hey, when do we start looking at the plan, and what would we spend out there? Would it still be roughly a little over $1 billion, or would we scale some of the project and do it more over time increments? I guess was the question that was posed to me about that. Would it be done in increments?
So my understanding when it came, and like I said, I'm thinking way back to the last World, that was 2019, right? When we actually started having these conversations, the responsible way going forward, it seemed to be in phases for, not only riverfront development, but really kind of expanding that area. Was what is that first phase where it will be add value and also be a piece that the next phase can fit into. So it looked like at least a 10-year project. Like it looked like they were really going to spend a while on this, so we could expect some changes. So it looked more phased in as far as what people I think would be looking at now. That's really anyone's guess at this point. I believe that a lot of decisions would have been made on the success of the baseball stadium, right? Like what would the baseball stadium have done this year, and then that could have helped generate, I think, some of the discussion about the surrounding area. Sadly, we're just not going to get those numbers because we the stadium isn't open right now. We don't have people who are coming in to Wichita from outside visiting like they would be if we didn't have COVID, and that's probably a good thing. Where travel is actually one of the causes of spreading COVID. So we just don't have that base that I think we would have, and that people were looking towards to make those type of decisions.
All right, Teresa, we're going to try again. If you're on the show, welcome to the show. Teresa, what's your question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for taking my question.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi. So I'm a parent of a 9-year-old enrolled in USD 259, and I'm curious. You're a parent as well. You have young children. I'm curious to know what kinds of precautions you're taking, not as maybe a mayor, but as a parent with your own children. What should I, as a parent, be thinking about with my own child the next, few months, possibly into the fall when school starts? And if you have any words of advice for parents who want some reassurance, if there's any to be given in this.
You're breaking up, but I think I roughly hear the question, and it's about myself as a parent. What am I doing as a parent during COVID? I have a kid who's in public school. I have a preschooler, and then I have a young guy who's doing the preschool, I guess. I don't know. My wife has all the terminology written down for me. Really, and it's a different. I want to step out of my lane as mayor because I'm not in any position, especially if you saw the condition of my house, to be giving anyone parenting advice. I do my best to keep the kids entertained and fed, but what we're doing as far as COVID is being very conservative. Where my mom actually made these like little masks like for my kids, and they look adorable in them, but it's really sad because they're wearing masks, and that's just where we're at right now. So we do a lot of stuff in the backyard. Like we're not going. If we go to the zoo, it's you have to set your time to go, and not playing on playgrounds, wearing masks. It's the kids don't really, I think, grasp, because my kids are really young, what is happening to them. It's just kind of something new, but overly conservative. We are learning more and more about this virus as time progresses. We're learning that it has very strange effects with children. There were cases where it was being misdiagnosed as something else, and then they found out it was actually kind of kids who were responding different to COVID. We're learning that people who get through COVID and they think they're out of the woods, though they're actually more susceptible to blood clotting, and might get heart attacks later down the road, or strokes. So we're not taking any chances. We're trying to be very conservative as far as what we do this summer. Not quite sure what it's going to look like in the fall when it comes to going back to school, and I think it's going to be up to the governor and also the school board. But I do know that USD 259 is taking precautions by making sure that every kid has a laptop, that they could continue if they needed to with either a hybrid schedule or a work from home schedule. Of course, we want things to get back to normal as soon as possible. But as far as in my house, we are very conservative with getting out there and just trying to make the best of it by doing some social distancing.
Thank you, Mayor. Number here, of course, is 316-491-5787. You can call and ask questions of the mayor. And Mayor, I will ask you this too about getting back to work, getting back to school. Where do we stand on talks with kind of the county on what the next phase could be, and if we see a spike in numbers? And that's not to say we will see a spike in numbers, but we've seen some new cases in Sedgwick County. We've seen some new clusters across the state. Where do we stand on potentially moving back to phase 2 without a governor's recommendation? What would your talks be with the county? Have you had those talks?
So I actually, and I don't know if I've been cut out of the conversation or not, I'm in a disagreement with, I think, some of the approaches the county has taken with this, where they're just kind of opening up while also having the advice to follow these these phased approaches. That I guess they voted to advise people to follow this, but they are the ones who really are in a position to actually enforce some of that, and I don't think they're voting or listening to the medical doctor who's supposed to be advising them. So I'm a little more conservative. If I had a medical staff who was advising me and saying, hey, this is what you should be doing, especially Dr. Mins, who I believe has an incredible resume, then I'd probably be listening to the medical staff more. My understanding, though, is their mindset, like in their own defense, is that if the numbers start to shoot higher, if particularly with hospital numbers, if hospitalizations go up, then they will start looking at implementing some of these type of policies that were implemented early on. According to my call, when I spoke on Monday with the county commissioners, but also with the healthcare professionals from the 3 hospitals in our area, they were very clear to tell us that by the time the numbers spike in the hospital, it's too late. Because COVID is one of those things where you can actually trace it 2 to 3 weeks back. Like, we actually saw a jump that could be traced back to Mother's Day about 2 to 3 weeks afterwards. So by the time the numbers spike for hospitalizations, we'll have 2 to 3 weeks of major spread first. And that's really what got New York. That's what got some of these other countries is once the hospitals started seeing those numbers increase, that's when they started taking action. So Wichita, we beat the odds up to this point because we took that action ahead of time. We went and just really learned from the mistakes of other cities and implemented precautions early on. Sadly, I think people are letting their guard down a little bit. Not wearing masks, or for some reason, masks or public health has become a political statement, and that's really sad at this point. Like, I wish that we were focusing on this as more of a health cause and not a political cause or political lens, I guess, what we're viewing it through. But again, I'm somewhat in disagreement with my friends over in the county side, so I probably shouldn't talk too much about that. But again, I'm the mayor, and I'll just say that my perspective is listen to policy experts who are experts in that field. Make sure you're listening to the CDC and your healthcare staff who advise you, and I'm not sure they're fully doing that.
All right, so 316-491-5787. I do have another COVID question that was posed to me this week.
Okay.
It was sent
I
to me on
can talk
Facebook.
COVID for hours now. Preparation.
Seems like we do nonstop. I know everywhere you go, but look, people have Facebook messaging me, and one of the questions that was brought to me was say, look, at this point, we know that a lot of people are wearing masks. We know that a lot of people are choosing not to wear a mask. Where does the city stand on all of its public buildings and public facilities? Do you kind of have a handle on what comes next? Do people have to continue to wear a mask in Wichita City public buildings?
So a couple things with this question, because I've gotten some text messages and emails, so I want to be clear on this, where the city of Wichita, from my understanding and my conversations with our legal team, we cannot implement a citywide everyone wears a mask, or you have to wear a mask if you're serving food, or my understanding is we don't have the authority. All that authority goes into the lane that is the county commission. However, we do have authority to regulate our own buildings in our own Wichita programs. So places like the library, places like the municipal courthouse, places like City Hall itself, you cannot get in there without a mask on. We have a thing of masks. We ask you to wear a mask. We have a station where you have the option. You're not required to have your temperature taken. And then we have markers on the ground that show, while you're staying in line, we have created, I think, longer line, just ropes pretty much, where you have markers so you can stand 6 feet away from the person in front of you. So really the stuff that's under the city of Wichita's control, which is our buildings and our programs, we are following CDC guidelines. We want to make sure that if you're doing business in City Hall, you are protected to the best of our ability. And that is really paying dividends when we look at my mayor's council on diversity, inclusion, civil rights, where one of the people there, no symptoms at all, showed up, social distancing, wearing a mask, we're all wearing masks, and finds out just a couple of days later that they actually had COVID that whole time. So that's kind of a reality check, I think, where we almost feel like we're going through the steps, right? Like we're just kind of going through the steps now, and then you get you let your guard down a little bit, and then you get like kind of confronted with, oh wow, if I wasn't wearing my mask, if they weren't wearing their mask, then I might actually have caught this. So yeah, short story long, I guess. City buildings, we are following the guidelines, but there's nothing at the city level we can do to impose any guidelines on anyone else who is not, directly a program of the city. But I am encouraged that there are a lot of private businesses that are taking it upon themselves to ensure that their customers and that their employees are safe.
A lot of businesses have done that, even though they're opening up. I will say I went and got a snack at a business. That was something new for me. And it was every other table, every staff, everybody's wearing a mask. So I know it's a personal choice for a lot of people. As Kansans, certainly we value our freedom. I think it's kind of ingrained in us. But it was interesting to see that it was every other table. And then there was the social distancing and the masks, and things were very clean. I don't remember things being dirty before, but it was as clean as could be. So that's encouraging. So 316-491-5787. We have time for probably a couple more calls. If you want to call us or drop into the Facebook, we've seen a lot of those tonight.
This is the first time, by the way, my headpiece has stayed in the whole time, and we haven't gotten any calls. So
that's okay. Mine keeps popping out, so that's okay.
But feel free to call, please.
The one other question I had that was posed to me on Messenger, somebody Facebooked in for me, and they wanted to know, and not necessarily COVID related or budget related, but just in general, what's the next big challenge for Wichita?
Next big challenge for Wichita is economics. So, right now my focus, of course, is I want to keep everyone safe. So COVID, my vision for Wichita is to be the best in the country, right? Like I want to be in the textbooks as a city where this is the city that did it right. So when COVID first hit, I remember thinking, I don't care if I'm electable after this. Like I'm going to follow the best practices, the best policy. We're going to go and we're going to save lives. And we were told, or I was told, you really can't. Like don't get that in your mind, because we had 200 to 300 projected deaths here in Wichita, and now we're less than 30. So we actually got ahead of it. We did really well. So that was number one. How do we save lives and not become, New York or, even our sister cities? The next part, of course, is we had some social unrest, making sure that we are responsive to the community. That I think is moving forward. Eventually, or next, we got to start dealing with rebuilding our economy. And then we had the budget crisis, right? That's take care of your own house first, make sure that your budget is balanced. Once you balance the budget and get past the other stuff, then it's rebuilding the economy. It is making sure that we are diverse, that we diversify our economy so that we aren't just kind of falling into that same that same routine, I think, economic that we have been for the last 10 years. That's really been leaving us behind. We have seen charts and data that shows all of our sister cities, their economic development is on the upswing, and ours is kind of flat. And the reality is it's just because we haven't diversified like some of our peers have. One of the silver linings, I guess, when it comes to COVID is that we're seeing manufacturers that do one product switching over and creating a different product. We're seeing some of the versatility of our manufacturing sector here in Wichita, and also we're seeing I think a rise of technology being utilized for communication, and those are going to be our two main pillars moving forward: is manufacturing, diversifying the type of stuff we make. We can make really good stuff for the aerospace industry. So what else can we make? What else can we put out there as products? And then also technology, where we want to make sure that we get products up into the cloud that can be sold in an international market. That's going to help stabilize us, I think, when it comes to economics with money coming in, because we'll be in multiple different microeconomies.
316-491-5787. We've still got time for a question if you want. What have the talks been like with kind of Textron and Spirits of Wichita right now? I know that there's been some scale backs. I know that they've continued to go very strong with the military side. But what have talks with the city been like? Have you had those discussions recently?
So most of the talks I've been having has to do with increasing opportunities for small businesses. So how are we're really good at kind of this old established playbook. My perspective is we should be doing more than that, all right? So most of the talks have been towards different policies we can use to attract and grow small businesses. But when it comes to some of the larger businesses, you're right. We have I think some of our aviation companies who are going after these national defense contracts, and they have to kind of rescale some of their production so that they can be more appealing to taking contracts from our military. So we're trying to diversify them as well, where they're just not making Boeing products, but they can also make military products. And then, like I said, we want to grow small businesses. We want to attract talent here. We have to have just a very diverse portfolio moving forward for us to, once the economy is fully open again, we're ready to really take off with it. I think that we've had we're in the recession numbers right now, and the only way to go is up. Well, let's make sure while we're in this kind of low space, we're able to do what we can to position ourselves for that bounce back.
All right, 316-491-5787. We're thankful for those of you that have called as we continue to take questions and Facebook questions as well. And two, one of the things on the personal level, I know as being kind of a media person, people always want to know what I'm up to, what my thought processes are. And most of the time I'll tell people, why do you care what I think? I'm just a messenger. It's not important what I think. Well, thank you. I do appreciate that. So that's kind of the standard answer I give people. But for you, on questions for COVID, since we continue to have those discussions, what about a swimming pool? What about taking the kids out to eat? Have you had those discussions and those talks yet? Because I know you've held a pretty strict line about let's do some social distancing. Yeah. Let's wear the mask when we're around groups of people in particular. From a personal note, give people some insight there.
So really, we just doing what we could to be creative while still, particularly in my situation, being creative while still trying to give the kids a sense of normalcy. For example, during Easter, it killed us to not go see grandma. My wife has this huge family here in Wichita, and we normally go see them. I think they have like 400 cousins, maybe not, but it seems like that. Like there's a lot of cousins, and our kids play with them. So we would have to do stuff like we all pile in a car, and then mom drives, and we're going to grandma's house. We are hiding Easter eggs in the front yard with a sign, and then like leaving. And then kind of watching grandma come out, and she's all, oh, Easter eggs are here. And then, we get to watch her kind of clean up the Easter eggs, and did that to all the siblings, where our kids, they loved it. They thought it was like a really fun game to sneak up, put down Easter eggs, and then get out of there. Of course, it's really sad because, they like it because they're young enough. But with us, it's, we're trying to give them that normalcy while still keeping them, and more importantly, grandma safe, where, my job, I run into lots of people like Craig and others, and I want to make sure that I'm not accidentally passing it on to grandma. So we are doing what we can to give them some normal life while also taking the precautions needed to keep them and the rest of us safe.
All right, we're almost out of time, so I will tell you for next time, 316-491-5787. So just on another personal note, the kids' masks, are they actually smaller, and do they loop around? Because
they're adorable. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, mom knocked it out of the park, where I thought, okay, mom, yeah, go ahead and send me some masks. Like, I don't have a whole drawer full of them at work. And yeah, and I didn't even know mom could sew, but she really kind of, she really stepped it up. And she lives in New Hampshire, so she sent us a whole gift box full of them. But yeah, these little mini dinosaur masks. And
dinosaurs, okay.
Yeah,
that's
my kids wearing them. I don't know, they're, like I said, what world are we in, or what timeline is this, right, where now we talk about adorable kid masks?
Well, it's one of those things that we're living with. And again, personal choice. Kansans, we love our freedom. Some people do, some people don't. For my son and myself, we had a family member make a Kansas City Royals and Kansas City Chiefs masks. So that's, kind of a personalization. Maybe we should come up with a Wichita flag mask. I haven't seen a Wichita flag mask.
I've seen them. They're out there.
I have not.
They're, I don't know if I got enough time to say this. The Chamber of Commerce, Wichita Chamber of Commerce website actually has a list of local people who sell this stuff. So 30 seconds left. Yes, go to that website if you want your Wichita-made Wichita flag mask.
Okay, repeat that real quick. Wichita Commerce.
Wichita Chamber of Commerce. Google them, their website.
Yeah,
they have a link that has all the locally made stuff, so you can get your mask there. All right, we're getting a signal. Thanks, guys, for being on.
Appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us. I'm Craig Andrus. Have a good one.